Hi everyone, I'm Esther. Welcome to Parenting Inside. So we're still on the conversation about child development, and we have already explored. We're exploring the four stages of cognitive development in children, according to Jean Piaget. We already gone through the first stage, which was sensory motor, which covers children from birth to 2 years, and we went ahead and started exploring the second stage, which is preoperational stage, and this covers children between 2 to 7 years. But we also mentioned that preoperational stage is further divided into two substages, and we already in the previous video covered the first substage, which is symbolic function substage, which covers children between 2 to 4 years. So today we are going through the second substage of preoperational stage, and this second substage is called intuitive thought, and intuitive thought substage, and it covers children 4 to 7 years. So the two characteristics of intuitive thought substage is centration and conservation. So I have with me, as always, I try to make it as practical and as real to us parents as possible as can possibly be. So today I have two items that I will try to use to demonstrate conservation and centration. Okay, so first of all, to explain, centration is when children mostly between 4 to 7 years focus on one characteristic of something and forget to focus on the other characteristics of the same thing. Remember the very first video I did, the introductory video, that I was trying to show an experiment where you can ask a child, you can pour an equal amount of liquid in two different sized glasses, and the glass that is mostly slimmer and slimmer will have the juice will appear to be more, and the glass that is shorter and wider, the juice appears to be less. And a child who saw you put an equal amount of juice in those glasses or water will believe that the glass that seems to have a higher level of the liquid has more of the liquid than the glass that seems to have a less amount of the liquid. That is centration, where they concentrated on the length or seeming the height of the liquid and forgot the core fact that we had measured the liquids together and the liquids were the same, was exactly the same amount. So the same goes for, so centration again could be even something like I have two similar pens, and you now, so if I was to ask, for example, maybe a 4-year-old, and remember this is not cast on stone, so it's just ideally maybe an average. On average, most children within these age ranges would probably view things the same, but it doesn't mean that a child cannot be different and cannot be either ahead of their peers in terms of understanding and conceptualizing these things, or slightly not able to view things at the same pace as their peers. I mean, there's a wide spectrum of development when it comes to children. So this is just, on average. Okay. So these are two identical pens. If I ask, for example, a 4-year-old if these pens are the same length, or the same length, then the child would probably be able to see that they're the same and would probably answer that yes, they're similar, they're the same. If I alter the position of one of the pens and move it higher up and ask the child if both pens are the same size, the same child might actually say that this pen is longer, simply because when they look at the length, it seems to be higher than this one. So centration is when a child focuses on one characteristic. In this case, they forget that the pens are exactly the same. The one pen has not shrunk, one pen has not lengthened. So the characteristics of the pen, the nature of the pens hasn't changed. So you can alter the positions of the pens, but that doesn't change the pens, with the length of the pens. So centration is when a child focuses on one thing, one characteristic, and is unable to factor in all the other characteristics that still make sense about that particular item. Okay. And then again, first we go to the second characteristic, which is conservation. Conservation now is the opposite of centration. is when a child is able to understand that the characteristics of something may seemingly have changed, but the nature of that thing hasn't changed. I can have altered the position of this pen, and it seems as if it's longer than this pen, but the fact is that both pens are the same length. Okay, so again, this is a full biscuit, and this is 4 pieces of the same biscuit. And for example, if you have 2 children who are in this age group, let's say 2 children between 2 and 7, okay, any age in between, and you gave them each a biscuit, but you gave one child a full biscuit, and you gave another child, just give me a second, and you gave another child 2 halves, okay, of the same biscuit, and you gave another child 4 pieces, 4 quarters of the same biscuit. So I have a full biscuit. Let me move this. I have a full biscuit, I have 2 halves, and I have 4 quarters of the same biscuit. And you tell these 3 siblings who are in between 2 and 7 years that they each have had 1 biscuit. So this child, I wouldn't be surprised if this child believed that you have favored the other 2 siblings because you gave 2 biscuits to this child and you gave 4 biscuits to this child. Okay. Again, that goes to highlight the 2 characteristics of intuitive thought substage. One is that centration, that this child focuses on the pieces but is unable to focus on the fact that when the pieces are brought together, they're equal to 1 biscuit, just like theirs. Or that when these 4 pieces are brought together, they're equal to 1 biscuit, just like theirs. Okay? So when they think that their siblings have been given more biscuits, that is centration. They are focusing on the number of pieces. Conservation would be when they're able to understand the concept of fractions, that 2 halves equals 1. So the nature of the biscuit, the size of the biscuit hasn't changed, and the number of the biscuits haven't changed. They're each having 1 biscuit, and that 4 quarters equals 1. And so this child has eaten the exact size and number of biscuits as this child and as this child. So when at home you're faced with such a situation, and now with the knowledge of cognitive development and understanding that we can't work with what we don't have. A child cannot use an aspect of brain development that they haven't yet developed, they haven't yet acquired. It makes you more understanding, more empathic to a child when they're crying and saying that you gave their sibling more. Then instead of having battles with a child, trying to tell them that, look, 2 halves is equal to 1, and so you had just the same amount of biscuit as your child, there's a way you can observe a child and see that even when you explain it, and they see it, it doesn't make sense. They still believe that these 2 siblings had more. In that case, really, I would just take back the biscuits and just give them the biscuit that they understand to be an equal measure. Because to them, emotionally, you are a mother who favors. You don't love them as much as you love this one and as much as you love this one. And then this one believes that you don't love them as much as you love this one because this one had 4, okay, and they only had 2. Cognitive development is a real concept, and it affects how we view, how children view the world, and the level of the understanding of something is really just what they have to work with. You cannot impose understanding that a child has not reached the developmental milestone to be able to conceptualize. Now, an 8-year-old would probably not think that their sibling had 2 biscuits and the other sibling had 4. Again, because developmentally, they have been able to understand the concept of conservation, that even when something looks different, it could still equal to the same amount. Okay, and then now to flip this situation again of these 3 siblings, if you gave this child a biscuit and they started eating it right now, and then you gave this child one half and waited for, let's say, 2 3 seconds, 5 seconds, let's say, and then you gave them another half, this child might not, I wouldn't be surprised actually if this child, in their mind, you gave them half a biscuit, which is very interesting because when they ate one half, that was a unique moment. That one half was one scenario. That one was closed. When they ate the other half, in their minds, that was another separate scenario. So their mind is not able to put together that the one half they ate 5 seconds ago, if you add the other half that they ate 5 seconds later, eventually adds up to the fact that they ate a biscuit. Because in their minds, those were two separate scenarios that when they ate this one, they swallowed and forgot and moved on with life. And then when you gave them this one, that was a new moment. That was a new biscuit that you gave them and they ate and life moved on. So when they come to ask you why you gave them a half and you're trying to tell them, but you ate two halves, their mind may actually not be able to comprehend that the two halves that they ate separately came together to make one biscuit, added up to one biscuit. And of course, the same for this one. If you give a quarter, in fact, the more the pieces now, the harder it is for the child to comprehend how the many pieces add up to one. So this child may have the hardest time understanding, especially if you do the giving the portions, the pieces and pausing in between. This child may have the hardest time comprehending or believing that you actually gave them a full biscuit. So those are the dynamics of child cognitive development. And that is why I love working with children, because literally when you start understanding that the brain is seen, the brain development is seen in literally everything that children do when they're at home, when they're interacting with each other, when they're playing, when literally you see brain development in almost everything that children do. You start understanding children and looking at them with love and empathy and through very understanding eyes, and you start realizing they're not being difficult and explaining things to them from an adult perspective and expecting them to conceptualize is actually unfair because they haven't acquired the ability to. So like I said, if this child does not believe that you gave them a full biscuit, in their minds you actually did not keep your word. So honestly, if it was me, I'd just give them a biscuit that qualifies for what they believe to be a full biscuit, and then understand that in a few years you will not have that problem because they will have understood the concept of portions and how portions can come together to make a whole. And they will have understood the concept of conservation, and they will have been able to do centration where they're able to factor different things, and then suddenly the same child will factor that this a full biscuit is one biscuit and two halves still make one and 4 quarters still make one. It's just a matter of time and it's just a matter of development. So yeah, that is how much fun hanging out with children and working with children and parenting when you have the information can be. It's being able to realize that brain development is there in everything we do. We interact with it through our children in almost every situation, and just being able to be aware of where your child is coming from is amazing. It's actually an amazing feeling to be able to learn to pick your battles, to be able to learn that some things, no matter how many hours you took to explain to your child something that for you is common sense, it wouldn't make sense. So don't bother doing it, because it's not that they don't want to understand, it's that they don't have what they need to have to understand what you're saying. So yes, so thank you so much for tuning in as always. I'm sorry, I know this video was long overdue, and but either way, I'm glad that I was able to post it. And our quarterly parents forum is coming up on the 3rd of August. It will be at Amani Gardens Inn on Church Road, Westlands. This time the topic is on how children learn. It's a fun, informative, interactive topic. It's loaded with a lot of, again, for me, all conversations have to revolve around at some point the brain, because you can't explain anything that a human being does. You can't explain behavior without talking about the brain. So it's a brain centered, psychologically centered, child centric way to understand how children learn. We're going to explore the brain, we're going to explore the different kinds of memory, we're going to explore how these different kinds of memories work, we're going to explain the dynamics that can help you as a parent, help your child to be able to learn with ease, to understand things. So many dynamics that literally change the world for your child as far as learning is concerned, and even for yourself. I mean, even we adults, we consume information differently, we learn differently. It may not be behind a desk, but we consume information differently. So this is a win-win for everyone. So please go ahead, check out our advertisement on our Facebook page, Parenting Insight, and pay up and secure your space for the forum, and come and let's have fun, and let's learn, and let's engage, and let's share, and let's grow together. So it's a half day thing, starting from 8:30, ending at 12:30. We are on time. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel, this channel, Parenting Insight, if you think that it's something that's beneficial, that is informative, and go ahead and comment, ask questions, suggest topics. We'd be glad to explore those. So thank you so much for tuning in. See you on the next one.